Hello, my sweeties. You have made it to Chapter 8, Destiny. Please enjoy. Disclaimer, this content is rated R18+. There may be cursing, blood, gore, and sexual content. This content is for entertainment purposes only. All rights of this product belong to the original owner of the work, Wyona A.M. Copyright. All work in this video from our audio written book belongs to the original writer, artist, Wyona A.M. This video is for entertainment purposes only. To contact the original artist for use of products shown or heard in this video, contact at YouTube channel Wham times 3 blog, Instagram Wham times 3, Twitter at mx3_WA, Facebook page Wham times 3. The program used to edit this video was Adobe Premiere Elements 2020. When she awoke, the castle was quiet and still not like the previous night, with the loud, bright energy of the festival. She lay still, taking in everything before she moved. Something had awoken her, she concluded. No, not Lito. He was still asleep, and it wasn't night. The sun was still too high, not afternoon, but not light, morning. The presence of others were in the castle, but most asleep. A few servants and volunteers were cleaning up the aftermath of the festivals. Some in the kitchen preparing meals for the guests that still stayed. She sighed and got up, the need to go to the restroom gaining on her bladder. She grabbed the small white thin piece of glass of a phone that Ayato had insisted giving her and looked at the time. A picture of a pink and purple waterfall greeted her. In white bold letters it said Wednesday, April 17th, 9:36 a.m. So too early for most of the night creatures to be up, and she'd only slept for a couple of hours, she groaned. Tiptoed to the bathroom and relieved herself. When she came out, she heard Lito groan and some rustling of the blankets as he rolled over on the bed. She could see him slightly through the crack in his door. His room had all of the curtains closed, keeping most of the light out. She could make out his sleeping silhouette in the bed, the red waves of his hair. His signature fedora was positioned on one of the bedposts, and his clothes from the night before were curiously tossed on the floor and foot. She found herself thinking about his room at the mansion. He had black, thick curtains to keep the room completely dark, even curtains around the bed adding to the darkness. The whole mansion, in fact, had such a setup. Ayase, on the other hand, seemed to enjoy light. Their castle was filled with natural light at every corner. Even part of the ceilings was sheer glass to bring in the light. Kelly went back to her room and dressed into a black sweater top and a light blue sweater that hung low on her shoulders and was a bit too big, engulfing her, along with a pair of blue jeans. Slipping on some flats before making her way out, she glanced in the mirror, seeing if the bun she had put her hair in last night was still holding. A few strands had fallen out, but it seemed to work with her current outfit. She didn't really care, but Luca did, constantly reminding her that by being a ward of his brother, she represented all of them. So she did try to look decent. She hated being told by Luca she was no longer homeless, and she gave the clan a bad reputation by dressing a certain way. The hallway was filled with a dim, natural light coming in from a large window at the end. As she made her way down a spiral staircase, she was greeted by the same thing. The main halls were completely filled with light through large windows, and as she made her way into the gardens, seemed but were allowed to take over the surrounding buildings. A few buildings were completely covered in blooming vines. She passed a few workers as they took down decorations, but avoided them mostly as she found herself into the maze that Lito had led her through the night before, and found herself back at Angela's statue. The statue was more beautiful during the day than at night. The gems that dressed her sparkling in the light and the flowers that bloomed around added to the scene along with a gentle fragrance. Kelly stared at the statue for a few minutes, even brought some flowers to place on the altar, remembering the wine and pastry that had disappeared the night before. A castle this old could have home nymphs. However, normally they were in the home, not the garden, concluded Carol thoughtfully as she sat there. So you are the one that has gained my angel's curiosity. Kelly jumped and looked around, but no one was in sight, and she didn't sense anyone except. She slowly turned and stared at the statue to find a ghostly girl in the same image of the statue smiling at her gently. Sitting on the altar, the flowers were gone. Her wings were gone, and she was dressed in a white gown. Her skin was darkly tan, not white like Kelly had imagined. Her long black hair was like silk falling around her. She almost looked like an older version of Maya. A glow seemed to come from deep within. Ayase has not seen one of your kind for a very long time. You are as rare as immortals themselves, she stated matter-of-factly. Her voice was gentle and soothing. Are you Angela? Kelly's voice was almost completely breathless. The girl simply nodded yes. No, not girl. Young woman was more appropriate. She had to at least be in her 20s. You heard my call. I find your powers quite fascinating, but it's the thread that ties you and Lyta together that draws mine and my angel's curiosity even more. Your angel's curiosity? Kelly repeated thoughtfully, trying to understand what she meant by those words. You mean Ayase? Ayase had always been my angel since I was a young girl. They believe it's the other way around. There was love in her voice, longing even. How is my daughter? I am sure you've met her. Maya? To be honest, Kelly bit her lip. Yes and no. Angela sighed. I was afraid that after all I had gone through, just to become a leader before I died, she would shut down. She was quiet. The glow that surrounded her seemed to become a little dimmer. Listen, little druid. There is a favor I must ask. I do not wish to bear something on your shoulders, or anyone else's, but I feel you're the right person, and unfortunately, I have no other choice, and time has already run out as we speak. What do you mean? Kelly grew nervous. Don't be afraid, young one. It is nothing more than a part of your destiny, much like you and Lyta meeting. Destiny, a red thread. Kelly remembered about an old proverb about a red thread of destiny. How did that go again? An invisible red thread connects those who are destined to meet, regardless of time, place, or circumstances. The thread may stretch or tangle, but it will never break. Kelly looked at Angela, who simply smiled back. It's one of my favorites. Do you know how Ayase and I met? I released her from a prison made by my own ancestors. It was the first step. Unfortunately, neither I nor my kin, it seems, can do the next step. Next step? There are many dark secrets and skeletons throughout the coven. In time, you will learn about them, because we will speak to you ourselves. You are a dragonborn, much like I, and it is our destinies to put an end to darkness to save the world. Some cultures call us avatars, and others druids, which are one of our oldest names, but no matter what, it is always the same. I don't understand. No, but in time you will. She looked distant for a moment. I learned about my destiny when I was no more but a child, orphaned and alone. The coven can become your family, much like it did mine. But you were born into the coven, weren't you? Yes and no. You will learn that in due time. Come with me. Angela stood and held her hand up to Kelly, who hesitantly took it. It was warm and welcoming, the skin smooth and soft. Angela led her into the small buildings across from the shrine, the one Kelly and Lyto had their dinner in, and went through all the wall, pulling a surprised Kelly behind her. When Kelly's eyes recovered from the sudden darkness she realized she was in, a tunnel under the castle. You were meant to be a part of the coven, and this is not your first time here, and I don't think it will be your last. However, unlike the rest of us, I believe you will have a better chance at solving the puzzle and putting it together. Never has there been so many dragonborns born so close together, much less into the same clan before. They walked down the tunnel. It was carved into the dirt. They stepped over roots and boulders and around puddles of water. Water dripped down on them from above and ran down the side of the dirt walls. The air was thick, the smell of moisture and fresh earth. Kelly felt safe in Angela's presence. Do you know why you can't swim? Because the water scares me. When I get in it, I panic. I've never really understood why. That's because you died in the water. Huh? Do you know why the spirit of Claudia hates you so much? No, not really. I just thought she hated all the girls who got close to Lyto, she shrugged. Angela chuckled. I am sure Lyto told you that, didn't he? He's not much of a player and a womanizer as he acts to be. Much like Aito isn't a heartless and even little Reggie. I grew up with them, and their grandfather did the most unspeakable things to our family. It's the same reason we cannot forgive him. It was the beginning of the darkness in our clan. But he is the head of the Butagaya clan, and that will never change. What happened? The tunnel started going uphill where the light was appearing. They stepped into the light. Kelly's eyes again had to adjust. The tunnel opened into a small little meadow. Kelly squinted her eyes at the bright sun as they walked into the trees and stopped. Kelly looked around. I know this place. And you should. If you want to know the answers to your questions, they lie here. Angela pointed at the burned ruins of an old cabin. It is up to you to find the answers, to stop the darkness that threatens my family. Our family. Angela corrected herself. Kelly looked around the ruins. There were crystals cracked and crying in pain, an old Viking dagger and sword, complete with what was left of a shield. Kelly looked at it. She knew it all, every single one, and they knew her in return. They had had many countless battles protecting her and fighting with her. Angela, I don't understand. Kelly spun around, finding herself alone. Angela? Kelly turned back to the ruins and hesitantly, slowly stepped through the wreckage. The objects were singing to her now, talking about how much they missed her, how proud they were to see her grown. Kelly tried to zone them out. It was an old white witch's home. She saw some of the carvings of protection and wisdom, even a place to meditate. In the back there was what was left of an old herb garden. Kelly bent down to touch the Viking shield. The metal sang to her, and to her surprise, on the surface was decorated the same design as her necklace, but with a dragon who was tangled in the Celtic knots. The matching dagger and sword also had the same design, and all fitted for someone small, lightweight, easy to be moved. A woman, possibly? Easy for her, someone her size. A crack and groan came from under her feet, but she wasn't fast enough, and the floor collapsed. Leto awoke. The sun was slowly setting, sending rays of orange and reds through the curtains, not as thick as the ones at his home. He loved visiting Isaac's castle. It brought back memories of his childhood before everything went to hell. He could visit with his sister's shrine. It was far from humans. The castle was filled with natural light, unlike his mansion, the traditional Victorian-style thick curtains to keep the building dark during the bright hours of the day. He could never sleep deeply there. He'd always find himself tossing and turning. He sat up, finding his head throbbing. Ugh, I shouldn't have drunk so much, he groaned. He couldn't help himself. It was either that or taking Kelly, and he knew she wasn't fully ready yet. Letting him take her blood was one thing, but going further, damn those, what was his, damn them all to hell, he hissed, feeling the tiger wakening inside him, seeking revenge for its mate. Leto looked at the mirror sitting on the wall across from the bed. He could see himself reflected in the mirror. His pale ivory skin, long wavy locks, beauty mark that only ever belonged to him, and those green emeralds. He'd been cursed with his mother's eyes. The blue tiger looked at him through those eyes, the blue glow of the tiger's eyes, the blue stripes ghosting on his ivory skin. In due time, old friend, in due time, Leto promised the tiger. The tiger slowly faded back into its slumber, but Leto could feel its presence inside of him. Leto slowly stood up. His throat was dry, and the thirst strong like it usually was when the tiger would stir. It used to be hard to quench that thirst, but now he merely drank a few drops of Kelly's rich, ancient blood, and it satisfied the tiger. He threw on the clothes from the night before, not bothering buying the buttons. He unlocked his door. He hated locking her away from him, but he was afraid he was going to lose himself. He walked the short distance past the living room space to Kelly's room, which she'd left slightly ajar. The guardwolf's yellow eyes watched its master as it lay in the front of the fire. He smelled that rich, earthly smell that could only belong to her. He breathed it deeply. The tiger purred and stretched. The smell touched his groin, which hardened slightly with just the thought of touching her. Pet-chan, are you awake? Leto opened the door the rest of the way. He found an unmade bed, pajamas thrown onto the tousled covers, but no sight of her. Maybe she went to get something to eat, he said thoughtfully, going back to his room to throw on his shoes. He walked through the castle that was slowly coming to life and went straight to the kitchen. No Kelly, and no one had seen her there. Where did she go? Leto, Luca growled, walking up to his young brother. Leto looked at him innocently. Luca, have you seen my pet-chan? No? Why would I have? More importantly, why are you still dressed in last night's clothes? Go to your room and get to clean this instant. Leto rolled his eyes and walked away, searching the air for a scent. Luca always was a pain when it came to look, just like his mother, making everything look and seem so picture perfect in their clan when it wasn't. It irritated Leto, but at the moment, he just simply wanted to find his little pet and see if he could get some time with her in private. Kelly came to slowly. She slowly moved to a sitting position, nearly being knocked back down by a sharp pain which shot up her arm. Her head was throbbing, and she was covered in dirt. She looked up, expecting to see the bottom half of the floorboards she fell through. Instead, she saw the trees, younger and smaller than the tall ancient ones that surrounded the forest she'd been in. She looked around confused. She was in a forest lying on green, soft grass. Yes, she was in the same place as the cabin, but before it was built. The clearing wasn't cleared yet, and the trees were all young, but the same ones. The smell of the ocean's salty mixed with the sweet smell of summer? She slowly got up, not quite trusting her legs or where she was, and made her way through the trees and was guessing the direction that Isaac's castle should have been. The forest was thick, and she often stumbled on uneven ground or got caught on twigs. Her mind still a bit foggy from the fall. Luckily, the castle was where it was supposed to be, only newer. The stones did not show age, and the vines were not taking over. Also, the extra buildings like where the festival had been were not built yet. What time period was this? She heard laughing children and looked over to be passed by 3 boys somewhere between 7 and 9, playing happily with wooden swords and chasing bats. Ah, my bats got away, cried one boy with black hair. The other 2 had red hair, Kelly noted. Don't worry, Reggie, we'll re-catch them, said another boy who looked kind of like Leto, only younger, way younger. Yay! Ayato, came a fierce woman's voice as the third boy turned to look at a black-haired woman with green eyes and a black and white dress who stormed over to the 3 boys. Claudia. Kelly recognized her from the portrait on the wall in the mansion. The boys froze. Why aren't you doing your studies? But Mama, I finished early, so I thought I could play. Nonsense! You will never be done with your studies. Now if you ever want to become the heir. Leto, do you want to become the best? The heir to the house, to the throne? Oh, Mama, I will become the best. I will become the head of the house. I will take the throne. The boy said it, but there was hate and disappointment in his eyes. Good, now go. The boy ran off in tears running down his face. Kaya wanted to chase after him as he went through her into the castle. Ah, my little songbird, sing for Mama. Relax her so she can sleep. The woman sat on a bench, and the black-haired boy, which Kelly was guessing was the younger version of Reggie, sang to her as the other, possibly younger version of Leto, watched, smiling happily. Kelly moved on, walking through the courtyard and into the gardens, where she found a blonde-haired woman, her long hair put properly into a bun, and she wore a blue and white dress. She was reading a book, and next to her was a dark-haired boy with glasses reading a book on advanced science. Another boy walked up, laughing with a puppy in his hands. He was blonde and blue-eyed like the woman. The woman put her book down and stood up, looking very unhappy at the boy. What is that in your hands, Edgar? She cried. My friend gave him to me. Isn't he cute? Edgar, you are the heir to the throne. You do not need a disgusting thing like that. Now get rid of him. Now, Edgar, I will not tell you again. But, Mom, the boy was cut off by the woman slapping him harshly across the face. Take it, she insisted to a servant, who promptly took the puppy from the boy, leaving. The boy cried in horror, and the woman slapped him again. You are the heir of the throne. Don't forget that. The boy ran away in tears, and the woman calmly sat down and returned to reading her book like nothing happened. The black-haired boy, who'd been watching the whole time, smiled at her. Mama, I memorized this whole book. She did not respond. Is this Edgar and Luca? Is that Eve, their mother? Kelly wondered as the sky grew dark. The scene changed before her to a dark, stormy night. Kelly struggled to get into the castle before she got poured on, but it wasn't the castle anymore. It was the mansion. She recognized the courtyard, but it wasn't in pre-Victorian style anymore, but its layout was the same. She recognized her as well, calling to her, beckoning like when she'd first stepped foot in the ghostly courtyard almost a whole year ago. She heard something coming from upstairs. Kelly couldn't quite make it out, but it was voices. She followed the sound and to her horror found Claudio, Leto. She was naked, sitting on top of a terrified Leto who was also naked. He was restrained to the bed and could only had been 13 years old. She was touching between his legs. Come on now, be a good boy, she coaxed. Make Mama feel good. She watched while he finally gave in and the woman mounted her own son. That's my good boy. You know Mama loves you, right? Kelly put her hand over her mouth and moved in horror, a scream wanting to come out. Then a scream, like answering her cry, echoed down the hallway. Kelly ran to the railing and looked down to find Ayato, a teenager, maybe 15 or 16, covered in blood, and Claudia on the stairs, bleeding. Ayato, what are you doing? She cursed through painful gasps. It was her scream that Kelly had heard. Why, playing, of course, Mother, he said, licking the blood from his hands. Your blood is so sweet, Mother. The woman ran, horrified and scared, leaving blood on the walls as she followed the sound of a piano playing. She busted into the room and found Leto playing the piano in a romantic tune. Leto, save me! Ayato, he is torturing me. It was bound to happen sooner or later, he stated, still playing. Leto, save me! Then she jumped at the sound of a branch hitting the window. It was just a branch, Mother. Don't be silly. He would never dare come here. Leto! He stopped playing, not seeming happy about doing so. I will draw him away if you insist, he said. Wait here. Leto left. The rain slowed, then the clock on the wall ticked the time. Hours passed. The rain stopped before Leto returned. I chased him away. He would not return. The woman had moved to the small balcony outside. She turned to him and smiled. My brave prince. Come here. She extended her hand out to him. Do you love me? He asked. Of course. She looked into his eyes, but it was not the kind of look between a mother and son. No, it was a look between lovers, secret, all-too-knowing look. Always? He asked, his eyes turning soft, a boyish innocence, and a look Kelly never had seen on his face. Of course. Will you be mine forever? His face was still innocent, but his voice started to turn dark, like the one Kelly was used to. Always. He took her hand in his, stepping close to her, and for a moment they kissed a long, romantic kiss. His hand moved up to her throat, then down her chest and behind the dress. Kelly was frozen to the spot, forced to watch as Leto kissed down Claudia's jaw, slowly making his way to her throat as his hand went under the fabric of her dress. His fangs sank into her throat. She moaned. He released her. You promise? I am yours forever and always, she said, caressing his cheek. His free hand touched hers on his cheek. Then he turned to her again, the hand releasing her and slicing into her chest, and ripped out her throat, using his abilities to engulf her in flames before pushing her screaming body off the balcony, allowing it to fall 3 stories down to the courtyard where the rose bushes laid. Now you will be mine for eternity, he said as he watched her slowly die in the flames. Leto looked up at the sky, his eyes glowing as the blue flames spread through the mansion, consuming it. Leto's eyes grew dark and cold. He became the predator she knew him as. Kelly screamed and ran blindly, finding herself falling into an empty darkness. Now, do you see, Kelly? Angela's voice came out of the darkness, like whispering into her ear as she fell. You must put an end to this darkness. You are the only one left to do so. You must find them and stop this. Find who? Remember this, for this is your first piece. You are the princess. I have been looking for you for a long time. I was the puzzle maker, and you need to find the puzzle keeper, Pathfinder, the Joker, the Knight, and the Prince. You must fall into the rabbit hole and end the darkness that consumed our clan. The darkness disappeared, and to Kelly's horror, she fell down hard onto a coffee table, bounced off, and landed onto the floor. She coughed not from the pain of the fall, but the smell of the brimstone that surrounded her. Everyone looked in horror as Ayase, followed by Aito and Laita, walked in. Hachan, are you okay? Laita kneeled in front of her, reaching a hand out. Don't touch me, she screamed and scurried away. She saw the surprise and hurt in his eyes as he sat there watching her. She was scared of him, scared of Ayato, scared of just about anyone in this room. They could smell and feel it. A red thread binds us all. It's mysterious and wondrous, and we may never find out why, but we cannot fight it, for it is our destiny. The voice was gentle and soothing, but it did not take the fear away. It did not take the face she saw every time she closed her eyes, the demon that had come to the surface as Laito killed his mother. Geez, Laito, first you lose Pancake, now she's scared of you. Ayato's voice was the usual annoyance and impatience, but even his voice made Kelly tremble with fear, and from the looks of Laito, he was saying something completely different telepathically. Ow! Ayase hit Ayato behind the head before slowly approaching Kelly. She has a right to be scared. She is only human after all, and we are inhuman. Laito looked down. If she was only human, why does it hurt so much that she's rejecting you? Laito couldn't answer that. Miss Faith, Kelly looked at Ayase, concentrating only on those two black eyes. Soulless eyes, but she saw through the eyes of Angela. Ayase had seen this creature in her prime, when she was strong and beautiful with capturing sapphire eyes. Trembling, scared, and covered in sweat, Kelly called out to Ayase through her mind, knowing they could answer back. She could feel Laito still close, but he didn't touch her nor look at her. His eyes rested on the fire. Distant hurt and anger covered his face. Ayase could smell Angela and Kelly, but they'd known that scent anywhere. Faint bluish white marks covered her skin, some still glowing, and her locket quivering against her sun-kissed skin. It, unlike Kelly, called out to Laito. He glanced at the quivering locket, his own sapphire ring quivering in response. Can you stand? Kelly seemed to ponder that for a moment, finally looking at herself and the surroundings. I don't know, she started. She was suddenly cold. Ayase held her hand out to the girl, who took it. Ayase brought her to her shaking legs. She trembled over. Ayase brought her into the warm, comforting arms and led her away from the smoking room. Let's get you cleaned up, they soothed. There it was, Chapter 8, Destiny. I really hope you guys have been enjoying this series. I know I have been enjoying sharing it with you. I wanted to also apologize to my sweeties as well. These last couple of weeks, I've been uploading my videos kind of late. I do try to upload by Saturday night at least, and lately I've been kind of getting close. And I just wanted to apologize. I've been dealing with some mental health issues, and just so much was going on between finding out my best friend had COVID to having finals on top of that and a couple other things, and my anxiety and depression just kicked in full fold. And normally I would record the audio during the week and edit it throughout the week, and then I do the intro and outro the day of, and I just been falling behind, and I am sorry. I will be trying to get back to my usual recording and editing schedule that I had before everything happened, and I just mentally was struggling trying to get through these last few chapters. But I am trying to get through it. I am going to keep pushing, and I really hope you guys enjoy and take care. And I also will be trying to make a video here shortly of another episode of my Come Have Coffee with Me as well. So look forward to that. And Christmas is next week. So please be safe out there. Take care. Don't feel bad if you can't, really celebrate too much. we are doing a small celebration. I haven't even set up my Christmas tree. It's my tree is still sitting in the closet behind me, and I've just been struggling trying to get it down and just set it up, which is basically set up. I just take it out of the box, unfold it, plug it in, and it's good to go. But I know I've been struggling. This year's just was a really hard year for a lot of us. I didn't really get hit too badly until towards the end of the year, and I'm not rubbing it in anything. I understand for a lot of people it's been really hard. And election was really hard, and now we have the holidays, and things don't seem to be getting any calmer, unfortunately. So let's just try to be safe and just be grateful for the little things in the end. And at the end of the day, presents and objects just mean nothing. And it's always just the little things that mean more to people than anything else. So for me, my Christmas gift to you guys is, my book. So please enjoy, and I hope that it brings some peace of mind to you guys through all the chaos that's been going on. And I've been trying to upload some stuff onto my Patreon, but again, as I said, my mental health has just taken a turn, and I'm really fighting it right now. But I am going to try to push through for you guys. Take care, Merry Christmas, and love you.